Hello everyone, hope you're all doing well. Look, I want to talk to you about something that is kind of interesting to me, and I thought perhaps it could be of some help to some of us who are pondering on why is it that we eat more than what we need. And I know there are lots of people around the world looking for diet, fix this, diet regimens and formulas and things like that. But I believe it's not necessarily or just, while they all have their merits of course, is about what we eat or how much we eat, how much exercise. These are all of course very important. But I want to talk about why is it that knowing all the stuff that we do know about that we shouldn't be eating this or that or this much or that much, why is it that we still do? So perhaps, it's a warm day, let me turn this fan on. So perhaps we can together explore a little deeper that there is something there that makes us, orders us, directs us, influences us to eat, and also to eat things that are not necessarily are the best choices. Now what they are and so on, you guys can all figure it out what I'm talking about, you know, health choices and all that so forth. So let's get into it. I think what we should ponder on is the fact that what emotional experience we receive from eating, and why that emotional experience is so important to us. Is it just because we want to, sorry, obviously there's an aircraft going somewhere who might have had wrong things that it ate, making too much noise. So is it that the emotional experience that we get, we are after that emotional experience from eating? Or is there another reason that we look for that emotional experience? If you notice, we enjoy tasty things. We call, of course, everything has taste, right? But we're conditioned to consider certain things tasty. A little bit more salt, a little bit more spices of different kinds. So there are different items out there that not necessarily have nutritional values, but they serve a certain purpose, satisfy certain receptors that gives us a certain kind of a emotional experience, which, while we don't know why, what it does, those emotional experiences, what it leads to, what effect it has on us, but we are in search of that because we find it detrimental to our balance and tranquility. So what is it that disturbs our tranquility? We're going through this together. I'm exploring to you with you. It's the first time I'm actually pondering on this. So what is it that we want to achieve from these tasty things that we eat? A lot more than its nutritional value is needed for us, and a lot more than beyond the 1 or 2 or 3 bites of taste, wonderful taste. Why we continue? I think it's because in some weird way, which I will explain, eating tasty stuff seems necessary for us because of our inability to achieve what eating tasty stuff achieves for us. What is that? That is taking our thoughts out of the consciousness, not living in the past, dwelling in what things that we are conjuring up or dealing with it that happened in the past. They don't exist, but we are busy thinking about them, which means our thoughts are in the field of the known. Our thoughts are in the consciousness and roaming around, finding things and constantly calculating, debating, arguing, trying to fix things, or bringing the old emotional hardships or experiences, whether it's some negative experience in life or some bad business that we had or some relationship problems or some breakup problems, whatever it is. When our thoughts is in the consciousness, it has access to all these. And our ultimate instinct, without really having planned for it, is to stop thinking. For that, we don't even know how. Well, I've discussed in many videos how to stop thinking, but let's say the people who don't know about what we've talked about on this channel, among the 1,500 videos and counting that we've discussed many different topics, many being how to stop excess thinking, how to stop negative thinking, and so on. So the ones who really don't know how, their system instinctively is trying to do that without their interference through a way it has found to get the thoughts out of the consciousness. And it has found that to be true by eating. This is one of the main reasons that people eat, to settle themselves down. From what? From thinking, which is a favorite pastime and not a voluntarily pastime, something that every one of us seems to find it we have to do. At least most people who have not examined and explored their own psyche to figure out how the fragments of their psyche works. Thoughts, consciousness, fear, desire, ego, all these other things. Because through eating, how you can stop thinking is when you get the thoughts out of the consciousness. Because consciousness is the field of the known, where all the information that you've gathered, experienced, all the knowledge is stored in there. And thought finds its seeds of thinking in the field of the known, in the consciousness. But if you take the thought out of the consciousness, there's nothing for it to find. There's nothing for it to get engaged in thinking, pondering, calculating, figuring it out. Then it would find its balance, comfort, quietness, happiness, nothing to interfere, but just being one with the present moment. It is our thoughts that takes us out of the present moment and takes us into the past, into the memory. Memory is the past, so we live in the past. So if we can take the thoughts out of the consciousness, therefore we're not going to be thinking, at least not much. And definitely not about the stuff that don't exist anymore, don't matter anymore, and they're negative. So we will find our balance, quietness, happiness. But most of us can't do that. But our system has found a way by giving it a mandate of creating an emotional experience of eating tasty things. Because once you eat a tasty, spicy, or whatever is tasty, your tongue tries to share that knowledge, that emotional experience of that taste, recognizing taste, sends the signals to the brain. Brain is analyzing what is that taste, trying to give through that experience of tasting that, turning it into the pleasure that you're looking for. And that whole process of tasting, processing, and giving you that emotional experience, which in terms of tasty eating is pleasure, it takes your thoughts out of your consciousness in a way that your thought is not looking for anything anymore. It's not looking for something to think or conjure up or deal with, because it's experiencing pleasure of eating tasty food, which is busy processing it, experiencing it, and creating that emotional elateness that it feels wonderful about. And that happiness stops his pursuit of hunting for something to think about or figure out. Suddenly, the brain gives priority to pleasure than figuring something out. Have you not noticed? Every time you want to do homework, you want to play a game on the television, or you want to watch a movie, pleasure wants to replace the stuff that you don't necessarily enjoy. Or have you not noticed some people drink more than just enjoyment, to the point they get drunk, and that's because they enter into a pleasure experience, and that pleasure experience gives them total happiness and not worry about anything that most of us worry about life. They go through pleasure, and some other people do crazier things to go through substances, because everything that has certain pleasure seems to be able to take them naturally, automatically, without their making an effort, taking their thoughts out of the consciousness, bringing about a certain kind of a solace and not worry, state of not worriness. So in other words, pleasure of almost any kind stops thinking. And that's why many people keep eating. We're not talking about those negative habits of excessive drinking or substance abuse and stuff like that. Let's focus on stuff that is actually not detrimental to our health in that way, and it's not illegal. So people go for eating because it creates that pleasure, focuses the brain on experiencing this pleasure, and through pleasure, mind stops thinking, because finds pleasure has more priority than anything else in our life. Look how many things we do in life for pleasure, because it gives us that feeling of, I don't have to worry about anything else. Which means, why you don't worry about anything is because you stop thinking about anything else, because it is the thought that makes you feel certain emotions and act or react to something. If there's no thoughts, then obviously you won't have anything to worry about. And that's why people somehow, without even they intend to, go toward things, activities that brings pleasure, which actually takes their focus on, away from thinking, away from their consciousness, and brings their thoughts out of the consciousness, and brings comfort, balance, happiness, and a way to deal with their lives, with their lives of up and down, with their challenges in life. So ultimately, through eating, especially tasty things, you get this emotional experience of pleasure, which pleasure takes the focus of your mind. Therefore, the mind stops thinking. It's like taking the thoughts out of the consciousness, has nothing to look for, to plant a seed for thinking. Therefore, it finds its happiness. And most of these tasty stuff are in foods that don't have much nutritional value, which makes us become overweight and certain hazards for our health and so on. So if you focus on learning about what can we do, now that we know it's the pleasure that we eat, it's not necessarily that we need the nutritional values, it's the experience, that taste for that emotional experience, to get that pleasure to stop thinking, because the pleasure stops thinking, the mantra of thinking. So what do? So we don't have to eat, but get that goal of not having to constantly be thinking and stopping thinking, is to understand how our psyche works, to understand the relationship between thoughts and consciousness, to understand about our fears, where does fear come from, to understand about our desire, what is desire, how is it born, where does it come from, what are the prerequisites for desire to take shape and to be born, what is the relationship between desire and pleasure, what does pleasure do for desire, why am I in pursuit of pleasure, Why am I trying to fulfill my desire? What about ego? What is the role of ego in the way I feel, act, and react to everything that, or many things that in my daily life I come across and deal with face to face? So if we can understand how the fragments of our psyche works, then we will be able to understand how our mind works, how our thoughts, thinking, consciousness, how are they related, how do they work, and then we can control those excess thinkings. And when we don't have those excess thinkings and we have created that solace, that comfort, that relaxation, that tranquility, and control on what we want to think about, not what we happen to be thinking about based on our fears and anxieties and ego and so on, that keeps us occupied, then when the thinking is under control and we don't have to go through this constant thinking, and we have control that we know how to deal with it, and we're not subject to that negative feelings of constantly the negative thinkings that we go through it, then don't you think we will not necessarily be attracted to find a certain pleasure to distract our mind and take the thoughts out of the consciousness, so we will not be thinking, because we have already managed how to not be thinking excessively or about things that we don't want? So the ultimate purpose of these eatings is to get the thinking stopped through the pleasure that we get from the emotional experience of that eating tasty stuff. So if we can learn how to actually manage and stop our thinkings and its relationship with the consciousness, then we would probably not eat excess or all these tasty things that are mostly not of high nutritional values, which we gain weight and all that so forth, but we still keep wanting to eat it. The taste brings pleasure. The pleasure has got priorities over thinking or any other process, and that's why we are gravitating toward pleasure in many different aspects of our life, in many different ways, to stop thinking so we can be relaxed and happy, for it is thinking that messes up whatever it is that we want to enjoy. And that natural gravitation toward eating is the way it's trying to deal with thinking through pleasure. I hope it was something for you to ponder, and it would be of use to, especially the people who want to actually look after their health and their weight and not eat all these tasty but possibly junk food that doesn't help us, and perhaps we can all get in shape in a more productive way than this way. And for that, perhaps I invite you to join my channel on YouTube and become a subscriber and go through the playlist called The Psyche. Learn about all these things that I talked about, so you'll be more confident about how your machine works, become the mechanic of your machine, and enjoy a control on your thoughts, thinking, and have a more enjoyable and focused life. I hope you will ponder on it, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.